mentioned some things said about Drew Allar. This is from theathletic.com, multiple writers. Let's go to Riley Leonard, Notre Dame. Transferred, of course, from Duke. Last offseason, 3 years at Duke. His passing numbers aren't going to blow you away, but, man, he reminds me, are they at all similar, Riley Leonard and Sam Levitt, just older? Kind of seems like that to me from what I've seen. Here's a couple of comments from him as we talk about this amongst ourselves and also in the chat. He's hard to bring down. He's not a burner, but he's pretty damn athletic. That's from an ACC personnel staffer. He can move around, create more time in the pocket, which always creates a lot of problems and puts pressures on the defense, especially for the DBs. As a passer, he's good, not great. He kind of pushes the ball a little bit. He's a good fit for what they do with that offense. And then this from an NFL personnel person. I don't think the accuracy is great. To me, what makes him special is the scrambling, not even the quarterback run, like a Jalen Milroe quarterback run is a problem. With Riley, they call quarterback runs. You can defend it. To me, it's the ad-lib scramble, which makes him so tough, kind of like back in the day, 50, 60 years ago, for some of you my age, of Fran Tarkenton.
Yeah, I don't think he's quite as wily, maybe, as Fran Tarkenton is.
Well, that's a bad comparison to be using to whoever.
Yeah.
What the hell's he doing? And then he makes a play.
Yeah, that's probably the more accurate description, because he'll lower his shoulder more than he'll try to get around somebody. Jalen Milroe can kind of do both. He'll throw a spin move on you, but yeah, Riley Leonard's not going to do that. He's gonna get the first down and fight for it.
Didn't he go airborne in that game?
He'll do that. Yeah, he's kind of a wild man when it comes to that. But yeah, he's just, the thing about Riley Leonard. The NFL scouts can, they're going to say what they want about him. I mean, that ultimately for the next game or two, if they win tonight, doesn't matter. It's just all about the way that he just starts gets the engine running for that offense in a way that we haven't seen a Notre Dame quarterback really been able to do it in quite a long time. And he's really, really good when the game is close, too. He doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't cost them anything. They're always kind of in position to be in control of the game, or at least have it go where it's not completely away from them. In fact, they've not had one single game this year that was completely away from them. I mean, Northern Illinois won on the last-second field goal. All the rest of them they've been pretty much in control of the whole time, and that is due in large part to the fact that Riley Leonard is just so good at leaving them positions when they don't score of, okay, it'll be fine. Like, we'll punt, we'll get it back, defense is good, and then we'll move on next time.
Craig, anything on Riley Leonard? All right, Quinn Ewers. Maybe one of the most discussed quarterbacks in all of college football. One, he came out of South Lake Carroll, went to Ohio State. He was like the All-American guy as far as the top-ranked quarterback. Depends on who you look at, what service, but was there. It's interesting now, that's who they're playing, is Ohio State. I don't even know why I didn't bring that up earlier, but that's where he started, and that's who they are playing, of course, tomorrow night. Here's a couple of notes. Here are a couple of notes and quotes on him. I think he's got elite arm talent. People underestimate his ability from an SEC defensive coordinator. His touch, he throws the ball in the flats. It's like handoffs. I love that. That's a perfect way to describe how he throws the ball in the flat. It's like handoffs. Normally you're like, throw it in the flat, we'll tackle them, but he's so accurate, the ball gets there. It's kind of like, I can let him do that. No, I can't let him do that. The running backs have the ball in space, and they also have, of course, Sarkisian dialing up a bunch of great plays along the way. I think it's pressure. The person of an SEC defensive coordinator said that affects Ewers the most. Pressure affects any quarterback the most. I think it's the post-snap changing the looks. I think having a multiple attack, I think if you go in the game We're just going to do this. We're just going to do that. I think once he settles in on you, if you let him, then you are in trouble.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. I mean, he's not as escape, I guess, with the pressure. He's a better runner than most give him credit for, but he's been playing with that bum ankle all year, so it's not really that's not really going to be part of the game.
I thought the running mate, even though they really dominated A&M, but I thought the running mate early in that game to pick up a first down that was like 30 or 40 yards when it was tight, like low scoring early, and A&M hadn't even scored. I thought that's when he was coming off a pretty bad ankle. And he just seems to be able to make that one play.
But the biggest thing about him is he's been injured quite a bit. I mean, he hasn't had a big, gigantic season-ending injury, but he's had elbows and ankles and ribs
shoulder
and kind of all these things. So that's been Quinn Ewers' knock. And is he the superstar elite quarterback that Texas thought he was going to be when he rolled in there? No, I mean, he's not a first-round draft pick, but he's still been very, very good for them. He's got a great arm. Sark's built an offense for him that really, really works. So, yeah, I don't, does he get an A+? No, but he's not. He's passing with flying colors every day, to me.
I mean, they're playing for the national championship, so, he's lived up to some of his billing. I mean, he had to have a role in that. So, yeah, I mean, the guy was definitely hyped over the moon when he first signed. I mean, you would have thought that he was going to play 1 year and go to the NFL, and that's not hyperbole. I vividly remember some of the talk about him. He's the greatest quarterback prospect and this and that, and I know that that's recruiting, and that's especially recruiting folks. Just the hype is never ending, but he had a lot of it as a recruit. He had a lot of it, and especially when he signed with Texas, that was the missing piece. And so I don't know that he's been that all to himself, certainly not, but he has been a part of this resurrection or this reframing of Texas. And just when you think he's out of it, he finds a way to flip a switch and make some big plays at the end of a game when he's not been playing that well, or you feel like he's about to get pulled and he gets that warning of you better do something or your ass is on the bench again. And he lately, since having that happen in the SEC championship game, or was it the first meeting with Georgia, but he's,
the first meeting he was taken out for a series. Yeah.
So then, and then Arch didn't do anything either. But since then, it's he kind of knows now, oh, I got to turn this on. And yeah, he's dealing with a lot of injuries. Very talented. I mean, I definitely agree with the arm talent. He's got extreme arm talent. That's where a lot of that hype came from, was his touch and his ability to make very difficult passes look very easy, passes that not a lot of college quarterbacks are able to make necessarily. He was doing it at South Lake Carroll, and now is it only more polished and more prepared and more experienced. So I think he's a bit of an enigma when it comes to the NFL. I don't know what at all to expect from him. You would have thought that he would have been first round buzz last year based on the way he was talked about as a recruit and then as a transfer. That obviously wasn't the case. He's back. You would have thought this year he'd be talked about, especially in this quarterback class, and he's not. So I'm just very interested in what that future in the NFL looks like for him, whether it's this year or what. I mean, the thing I'm most interested in is what he does do after their last game. Does he go to the NFL? Does he go to the transfer portal? Does he stay at Texas and make things really interesting? Because I don't know how that would be sustainable. I just don't know. I don't think they want that at this point. But yeah, whatever he does after their last game is going to be fascinating. And he's really talented, but there are just times where it seems like he's either just not all there or just not sharp, and sometimes you got to hit the reset button on him, and then he's all right, he's good to go. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he'll throw that what
stupid
are you doing?
Interception that cost you prevents you from blowing open the game versus the team hangs around in the game.
The game against A&M when they dominated, that could have been a 31-3 game. The game against A&M, remember, he threw the pick six. He just kind of he's had a fumble or two. Here's the thing about him. In this day and age, I don't know how long Cam Ward's been playing college football, Incarnate Word, Washington State, Miami. I don't know how long Will Howard's been playing now, obviously, with his second team, among others. Quinn Ewers is actually only in his fourth year of playing college football. Let's not forget now, he left his senior year. He did not play high school football his senior year. He left. And so he's actually one of those in this day and age who's younger than you think because of that. And I think the patience is there. He's got one of the prettiest passes. Yeah, every once in a while he throws up on himself, and quarterbacks are going to do that. Cornerbacks are going to give up touchdown passes. Kickers are going to miss field goals. But he has, I think, one of the prettiest throws I've seen.
Well, that was the thing in the A&M game, though, was like that was kind of the Quinn Ewers experience on the bad side.
Yeah, but he's also the one that took off on that one run when the game was just kind of like, ugh.
But it was, they had to put Arch Manning in the game to get the first touchdown, right? Like there was those things that just kind of lingered around him. Now, part of that was because dude's been injured. He can't run that play. Like they can't. He had that great run, right? But then after that, when they needed to score a touchdown, they still put in Arch because that was the play they were going to call, and they didn't know that he could roll that up again. So yeah, that's it. Because you said that game it felt like it was 31-3. The final score of that game was 17-7, and it was because Texas physically dominated A&M's offense all night long, and they just never had that. And that's what the fear that lives in them is, if we get bad Quinn, then they're going to score 17 points because they're playing against a tough defensive team.
Yeah, I think he's just a very up and down quarterback at times, but when he's up, he's as good as anybody in terms of his skill set and what he's able to do with the football. And when he's fully healthy, obviously, which hasn't been the case, but he's really good. I mean, I just don't know how you place him in the big picture compared to what I thought it was going to be like, where he's the surefire number one quarterback after 3 years and whatnot. But his future is a lot more murky, although if he goes and wins a national title for Texas, like, his name will be etched in stone there in history for forever, and that's all he set out to do to begin with. So none of that other stuff really matters right now. He's, to quote him, living his dream, and he's got them 2 steps away from winning a national title and doing something that not even Colt McCoy or a lot of other great Texas quarterbacks were ever able to do. And by the way, it does bother me when you go, I don't know how many years, because you can look it up. Cam Ward played 5 years. Riley Leonard's in his 4th year. So it's not all that different. They're not like 6th and 7th year quarterbacks.
Yeah, I didn't know. I knew Cam Ward had played at least one extra year. I'm not sure what you mean.
You're like, I don't know how many years they played. Well, it's right here. He played 5 years, and he played 4 years.
I thought Cam Ward, there might have been one of these other years, but he did play. He has played 5 because he was 2 at Incarnate Word.
Yeah, 2 at Incarnate Word, 2 at Washington State, and then one at Miami.
1 year this year with Miami. But in this day and age where you have quarterbacks that seem like they're in their 5th, 6th, or even God knows 7th year, he's a young pup. He's right on target of where he should be. And he could come back for another year if he wanted to, like you said.
That's why you can't assume, Riley Leonard must be he's a 4th-year guy. He's played 3 years at Duke, and he's in his 4th year, so he's right on schedule. He's not some 27-year-old quarterback, so not all these transfers are guys that are 7th-year super seniors. They are just, maybe in Riley Leonard's case, looking to close out their career, place different, and it's obviously worked out very well for him. It's worked out well for Ewers, and I don't think those guys are off track from what they would have been if they'd stayed where they were originally at all. Ward obviously taking a little bit of a longer run, but even still only 5 years for him. So this is nothing like Dylan Gabriel or, TJ Finley or players like that we have seen go above and beyond your normal scope of eligibility.
NFL Lens on Quinn Ewers is from theathletic.com. What NFL scouts appreciate about him, though, is the fact the sword cuts both ways. The pressure on Ewers to direct traffic, feed all his receivers, generally make Sark's offense sing at friggin' Texas. With Manning behind you is as intense as it gets. And while there are plenty of concerns here, Ewers has absolutely displayed the type of poise, toughness, and resolve most teams see as non-negotiable for starting quarterbacks. Many scouts are higher on Ewers than some might think. His arm talent has always been terrific. He's athletic enough in the pocket. If he's playing behind what will be a good offensive line, he's going to have some issues, though, no matter what, when it comes to pressure in the NFL, which most quarterbacks, you see some of the best quarterbacks ever all of a sudden start to get pressured, and they change quite a bit. So there we are, the notes on Quinn Ewers. So we've hit Riley, we've hit Riley Leonard. We've also hit Allar and also Quinn Ewers. This is the one I'm really interested in. What do you think they're going to say about Will Howard at Ohio State?
I mean, Will Howard's is a really good college quarterback. I don't think he has, a lot of NFL chops about him, but the guy's just won, most every time he's rode out there since, 2 years ago at Kansas State.
Let me find the page here with Will Howard. One of the things that people said about Will Howard that they liked, and the critique was how this is a guy that basically was asked to leave at Kansas State because they had Avery Johnson, and yet there were times early this year where things were not perfect. He did not let that overcome him. He did not let that ruin him. Even though, there was the Michigan game, it seemed like when we hear about resiliency that Will Howard has shown that quite a bit as the coach, as the quarterback, both at Kansas State and also Ohio State. Think about who he's throwing the ball to. Jeremiah Smith, also with Egbuka. He's got Henderson in the backfield along with Judkins. He's had a lot of great weapons when it comes to what he has at Ohio State. But I think that's why I think every one of these guys has a great story. They have, I don't know if anyone really ever questioned Allar. I know that they've questioned Howard. I know people have questioned Ewers, even with the talent. And then Riley Leonard, I don't know if he's ever had much negativity around him.
Well, Riley,
people didn't care because he was at Duke.
He was at Duke, yeah. He's the little engine. And all these guys are kind of different in that Will Howard and Riley Leonard are kind of little engines that could, right? They created their story. They built their own path. Quinn Ewers. Every coach in the country would have, hidden a body for him had he asked to get him to come to their school. And then Drew Allar was in kind of the same boat, not maybe as hyped as Quinn Ewers, but for Penn State, the minute he got on campus, they were already done with the quarterbacks who were on the roster. I mean, the fans were like, no, Drew Allar. That's all they wanted was Drew Allar. And sometimes that can be disappointing when you finally do become the starter, and he hasn't disappointed at all. So he's lived he and Quinn Ewers have lived up to the proper amount of hype. I think they're the same in that regard. Where
Allar's a 5-star guy. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, so there are a lot of look, there are 3 former 5-star quarterbacks that are in the transfer portal right now that haven't even come close to sniffing the field. Right, all that consistently compared to what Allar and Quinn Ewers have done. So Allar and Ewers are probably more similar. I mean, Ewers is probably a little bit better, in the quarterback Olympics part of this thing. But I don't think there's too much of a difference.
Here's a thought about Will Howard. One thing he's exceptional is that he knows what he's seen. He's going to be able to carve you up because he's going to know where you are and where he's supposed to throw the football. It's a defensive coordinator from the Big 12 when he was at Kansas State. He doesn't have this ridiculously crazy arm talent, but he's got so much of an IQ, an acumen for the game. If he knows what he's seen, he's going to be able to make the throw. He's played a lot of football, Big 12 defensive coordinator. That's his biggest asset to me, the amount of snaps he's had, the different defenses he's seen, the different looks he's seen. There's not a lot that's going to catch him by surprise, and he'll be tested, of course, with what Texas has, their speed, and what they do on defense. And the other part about Will Howard is after the Michigan game, he's dialed up his 2 best games maybe of the year against Tennessee and the rout against Oregon. So he's been resilient when it comes to that, too.